Welcome to the roundtable. I am Brad Wakai. That is Tyson Gentry. We are discussing Super Bowl contenders, Tyson. I think it's that time that we're getting ready and talking about who the favorites are. We know the teams who are good. But first and foremost, we're back from vacation, baby. How was your 2 week little hiatus?
It was refreshing, I think. I think we're going to be relearning how to do these here for a second. But, yeah, man, just hung out, watched some football, ate some turkey. It was decent. You were a well-traveled man, though, over the break.
Yeah, man. I was in Nevada, in the Vegas area. Now I'm in Arizona, so I'll be here for a while too. So I'm basically just kind of couch hopping, hanging around with my family. It's been nice.
Check your local listings because there's a chance Brad Kai is in your area.
Yeah, Snap Map, all that. If you're friends with me, hit me up. But Tyson, I mean, let's jump this right now. People are kind of wondering. I've been starting to get some texts from people. I'm sure you have, and bar conversations, friends with conversations with your friends. Like, who do you think can legit win the Super Bowl? So let's take that here to the show. I mean, we've got our five favorites here from FanDuel that we're going to run through, but I think we're starting to get a real idea on who's legit in the NFL and the teams who are starting to like peel away from that and who's starting to separate. What do you think about that?
I definitely think it's solidifying quite a bit. And there's a couple teams like the Vikings I think people are still pretty iffy on as far as how good they are really. But then the 49ers have emerged and kind of taken that spot as the other, like that third NFC team that people think can make it to the Super Bowl and win. And we'll touch on them today too. But I think for the top five, you're pretty hard-pressed to talk your way into anybody else.
I agree. So let's jump. All right. So Chiefs plus 430. What we're going to do, we're going to give a reason why we think they can win the Super Bowl and give a reason why not, right? I mean, at the end of the day, these are hard to predict. But I mean, Chiefs have looked like the best team. I mean, they just started to dominate. This offense looks great with Mahomes. They're your favorite right now at plus 430. Besides, obviously, Reed and Mahomes, they've done it before. Why do you think this team can win the Super Bowl?
Well, this team, as currently constructed, can win in multiple different ways, which is very, very encouraging, especially coming off an offseason where you thought them losing Tyreek Hill was the offense going to be explosive. Is Marquez Valdez-Scantling going to step into a role as Juju Smith-Schuster nearly as good as the guy that he was 3 years ago? These ancillary pieces that they needed to step up. People thought it would be Sky Moore. He's relatively disappeared, although he did lead them in catches yesterday. But whether it's a close game against a really good team like the way they beat the Bills or the way they played the Bills, or if it's them putting 40 on somebody, they're either losing close or they're winning fairly convincingly. And in the games that they haven't won convincingly, they've almost been too cute. And I think I'm going to go into that could be my reason why they can't win the Super Bowl is because they're running – right now, their best running back is rookie Isaiah Pacheco, and I've been pounding the drum for him. I think he's a really good football player. They can't really run the ball. And luckily for them, it looks like the Bills still are going to be that team that they're going to have to play in the playoffs, and the Bills can't run the ball either. But if somebody wants to control the clock and beat Kansas City, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think for my reason why, and you stated it, right? I mean, they're an offensive juggernaut. I mean, they're just going to outscore you. Even with the loss of Tyreek Hill, which we thought would have an impact on this offense, you still have the best quarterback in the NFL, Mahomes. A Juju Smith-Schuster who seems to have found his niche and his reason why he wants to play the game of football over there in Kansas City, leaving Pittsburgh. And then I honestly think Pacheco, he's better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And that gives him a little bit more pop on the ground. And I think that shocked a lot of people. And yeah, they're not great at running the ball. I don't think they ever will be. Even if you add a superstar running back, it's just not the way that team is set up. It's so Mahomes reliant. But the ability to be multiple on the ground with Pacheco, who I think, 4 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry when they do run it, that is why I think they can win the Super Bowl. They have different levels. Now, why not? Honestly, it's going to be that defense, man. It's just you lose some pieces. I think the pass rush we thought, even though it's starting to pick up a bit with Chris Jones and Karlaftis, the rookie, it's still soft, right? It's still not a top tier. We saw it come to bite them in the playoffs. The Bills probably should have beat them. Then eventually the Bengals beat them just by torching up their defense. So I still have question marks about that defense. And is it a championship level defense for them to win the Super Bowl? That's my only question mark about them. Second favorite, Tyson, Bills plus 450. Now, they were the odds-on favorite coming into the season. They got red hot to start, and now people are saying, "Is this team even really good?" Our Chiefs are going to walk into the Super Bowl, and it's that classic Buffalo Bills kind of lull in the regular season, right? They don't keep their foot down on the big gas pedal, and they show weakness here. But at plus 450, I mean, what's your thought on the Bills right now?
Well, I was surprised to see them at number 2 on FanDuel as far as Super Bowl odds go. I figured the public would be a little bit scared off by some of the things that we've seen from them, but apparently not. I think everybody's like, "Oh, screw it, they lose to the Jaguars. We don't care. Like it doesn't matter."
Right. Why do you think they can win? I mean, obviously we know Josh Allen's electric. We know this is probably the deepest team, deepest roster. But is there a reason why you look at them, you're like, oh, that's why they can win?
Well, this team is different to me than they've been in years past. I know the defense has been kind of a calling card and people have really liked it, but this Bills team hits. Like they're flying around, they're hitting people, and they're physical. And I think they can just bully some of these weaker AFC offenses that they're going to end up seeing in the playoffs. And couple that with the fact that the offense is just relatively unmatched. It's pretty much them in Kansas City as far as you have 40 seconds left to go 75 yards. This is who you want with the ball. Like if you pick an offense in the NFL, you're probably picking the Bills. And then for the reason they can't win, or maybe they won't win the Super Bowl, is it's the same thing you just talked about. It's the complacency in which they in the middle of games where it's almost like we don't really need another we don't need to drain clock because we're the Bills. We're going to go throw, and then all of a sudden you're punting the ball back. Somebody's taking 7 minutes off the clock, and now it's 14-14 when you realistically could have been up 17-7 if you were playing a smarter game. But that's the nature of the beast with this offense. It's really, really hard to talk yourself into, let's turn around and hand it to Devin Singletary 3 times. It's like we got Josh Allen out here slinging the rock. I want him to spin that to Stephon Diggs. I want him to go deep to Gabe Davis. But they fall in love with that a little bit too much, and I think that's what's going to hurt them. And I know that what I think you're going to say is the running game, and that's obviously pretty big deficiency there for them as well.
Yeah, I think reason why for me, obviously, their depth is just insane, right? Their talent. They have a third-string receiver, and the number 2, number 1 on other teams in this league. Like they are stacked on defense, they are stacked on offense. I think Naheem Hines actually has provided a little bit of spark. James Cook looks a lot better. And Devin Singletary is starting to take on this role as a runner. So it seems like they're starting to kind of figure it out a bit, kind of figure out their style a little bit more as we get closer and closer to playoff football. But reason why, we've touched on this, why I don't think they can win if it comes to light this way, they're just still too Josh Allen reliant. This team goes as he goes. If he struggles or if he's not Superman, they are beatable. I mean, the Lions almost just got him on Thanksgiving, Tyson. Lions never went on Thanksgiving. And they snuck by, and there was a game-winning field goal, and Josh Allen was nails on that last drive. Another game-winning drive for Josh Allen. But he had to be Superman. He had to jump into the booth, put on the cape, and come out, and the Bills won the game that way. When he hasn't been able to do that, and when he struggled, like you get against the Jets, this team is beatable. So I think they have to figure out a way to not solely rely on 17, or else they could be into some trouble in the playoffs when everybody's at their best. Third team on the board here, Tyson, the Eagles. Our Eagles, plus 650, best record in the NFL. We already cashed our overplayed there on the win total. That was a good feeling last night. Plus 650, it seems like people are still saying frauds, or I don't know how good they are. Jalen Hurts, we have question marks. Is he elite? What do you think about the Eagles here sitting at plus 650? It feels like this thing is still undervalued a bit.
Well, it's funny and maybe we're coming off as homers because we are Eagles fans, but people have been saying the record thing all year, like they haven't beaten anybody. Well, they kicked the shit out of the Vikings, and they beat Washington, and they beat Dallas, and they're probably they played the Giants twice, and everyone wants to talk about how good the NFC East is. But then the NFC East is only good when one of those teams beats the Eagles. But if the Eagles beat those teams, then it's like, oh, who cares? Like it was Washington, it doesn't matter. So the schedule thing is just funny. We're going to find out more about this team in the last 6 weeks of the season here, because it does kind of tighten up a bit. And obviously they're in a race for the number 1 seed, but I must be watching a different football team than everybody else, because I don't really understand what a lot of the criticism is about. And I I think one of the reasons, and the main reason that they can win the Super Bowl, is what we just saw yesterday against the Packers. And they obviously aren't going for 365 on everybody, but the debate for the best offensive line of the league has been silly since week one, since we saw this unit together. And then it was like, okay, you can talk yourselves into the Chiefs, and everyone wants it to be, you name a team, XYZ. And then the Eagles Jalen doesn't really get sacked. He's hardly under pressure. They run the ball at will on everybody. And that's the thing is you want to say Jalen Hurts isn't a great passer yet? Okay. He doesn't need to be. they can go for 150 yards on the ground, score 2 touchdowns that way, and the defense can drain you and make you have to play a long football game, which is something that we haven't seen. And honestly, they've reverted back a little bit to last year as far as just kind of holding on, bending but don't break in the old Jim Schwartz style of defense, which is pretty stark contrast to the way they were attacking at the beginning of the year. And that's actually why I think that why they won't win the Super Bowl. That's the reason is it feels as if, first of all, they are very turnover dependent on defense. They have to force turnovers in order to play the way they want to. But we talk about the depth and we talk about all the stuff. When Reed Blankenship is making plays for you, and he was making plays last night, but he's an undrafted free agent on a 10-1 football team, and you want to go into the playoffs, and the NFC is not super loaded with quarterback. You don't have to worry about Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, but there are guys that can definitely exploit you. And then if you get to the Super Bowl and it is Patrick Mahomes, you can't play him like you play Kirk Cousins, right? You can't even play him like you play Dak. There's cautious optimism from me as an Eagles fan that this is good value here, but some of their flaws can easily be exposed by teams. Luckily, those teams seem to play on the other side of the country.
Yeah, no, very well said. I think the reason why for me they can win is they can attack on both sides of the ball in multiple aspects, right? Like they've shown that they can throw and beat you through the air. Jalen Hurts has taken a huge step forward as a passer. They have elite weapons now. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, when Goddard gets back and healthy, I think he's a top 5 tight end in this league. Miles Sanders has figured it out how to get into the end zone. They can rush and run down your throat. We saw Jalen Hurts last night. The Packers said they wanted to take him away. He just ran all over him, and that was their focus, was to shut him down in the run game, and he abused them on the ground. Then the defense, like you said, they can turn you over. They can sack you. They can just really disrupt it. And the linebacker play, I think, has done a good job. And I think when they get healthier, they'll be able to stop the run. And that's honestly scary, especially with those corners. But I think to your point, Tyson, too, why not? Why can't they win? Or, a reason why they won't win potentially is the defense just gives up so many easy completions to quarterbacks. And we've been saying this for a couple of years now. Quarterbacks are just able to get into rhythms. They're able to complete easy throws, kind of figure this thing out and just drive down the field at will and pretty much be in a position where you're either going to score a touchdown or kick a field goal because you just gave up, 75 yards at will because you're sitting in soft zones and you're not being aggressive. Now, that could change because it did earlier in the season, but it feels like regressing back, and Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator, is regressing back to, his tendencies or kind of his nature where he just wants to sit back. So that's pretty much the only weakness I can see right now is just the defense has some vulnerabilities through it. I think the offense is top 3 in the NFL from what we've seen so far, and I think they are legit shot. And I think at 650 plus 650, that's not a bad ticket to be holding if you didn't get him at the beginning of the season. 49ers also plus 650. Now, we know, let's talk about star power, man. McCaffrey comes over in the trade, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk's emerged, and on the defense, so you got this cast there: Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. You just go through the list there. They're starting to figure this thing out. Jimmy Garoppolo is starting to look good, and I know you're a Trey Lance guy, so it may be hard for you to give Jimmy G any praise here. But what have you seen from the 49ers that McCaffrey is in the bag?
Well, that offense is, this is what we had all hoped when really Kyle Shanahan started getting his hands on NFL offenses. It was like, oh, dude, if you got him just a really good running back, granted, he's had really good running backs, but he hasn't had one like this. And it's been up and down to start. And Elijah Mitchell actually was the more explosive one yesterday until, unfortunately, he's out now for 6 to 8 weeks. And that's just kind of and apparently Christian McCaffrey is dealing with tendonitis in his left knee. So we'll see how that progresses. Normally wouldn't be a big deal, but with a guy like CMC, you never truly know as far as his health. Like little things add up to big things, it seems, when it comes to Christian McCaffrey. But the reason why I think they could win the Super Bowl is, and it's funny, even you just did it, and I know you didn't even mean to, but it's like it's the second thing everybody brings up when they talk about the 49ers. It's the best defense in the league. They're insane. They just shut out the Saints, and they made it look somewhat easy. Like they 4th and goal, obviously the Saints got close there, but even then it was like, these dudes aren't going to score a touchdown. Are you kidding me? They're unreal on defense. They're fast. They're opportunistic. They scheme really, really well. And again, they hit. And I think that's the biggest thing for San Francisco this year, because it's always a good defense. But this is like a different level from just about everybody else in the NFL right now. And that's huge. But the reason why I think they can't, Jimmy still has to make the throw. Dude, I'm a big Jimmy guy. And I have been, and I am a Trey Lance guy, but that doesn't make me a Jimmy hater. I do like Jimmy Garoppolo, but I can't get it out of my head when he misses a 60-yard touchdown pass by 10 yards in the Super Bowl, and they could have already had one. And then he's not in this predicament. And I haven't had to see him make a throw in a situation like that since. And until I can see him complete that pass, because Jimmy Garoppolo he's closer to Kirk Cousins than I think people think he is. Take that for what you will, but Kirk Cousins is probably the best system quarterback of the 2010s, 2020s. Like the dude, he's really good at running his offense. And Jimmy Garoppolo is really good at running this 49ers offense. But if they fall behind to somebody and it's 14 points or whatever in the fourth quarter, can Jimmy put the pressure on you to move the ball down the field? Because they have all the guys. But if it's a Debo jet sweep that you're relying on to get you 40 yards in the fourth quarter, that's an issue.
I completely agree with you, man. Everybody's going to be like, geez, these guys are just copying each other. But no, I mean, it's been the same old story about the 49ers forever, right? Super insanely talented roster. He gets banged up, who then gets healthy, and then can make a run. It's like a perfect circle over there in San Francisco. Shanahan finally has more toys to play with, right? He gets McCaffrey. Then, of course, Elijah Mitchell gets hurt. Then he'll probably come back in time for the playoffs, and you're going to have all these shiny toys that Shanahan's going to be able to unleash. But I mean, here's why they can win. And you said it, man. I mean, they are the best defense in the NFL. Their offense is operating at such a high level. Garoppolo seems to have really figured out how Shanahan wants him to run this offense, because he can do whatever he wants, right? Because Garoppolo, if he wants to throw it here or there, he's the one on the field. But it seems like he's like, hey, this is how Kyle wants me to run this offense. This is where, this offense will operate at its highest capacity. Feels like he's doing this a lot more this season than when he did it like a couple years ago. We had questions about him. And the reason why not is the quarterback good enough to win the Super Bowl. Now, I'm much higher on Jimmy Garoppolo than I think you are, even the general public. I like him a lot. But there is that question mark. He missed that throw in the Super Bowl. They have him back. And a lot of it has to do with, quite honestly, Garoppolo not being able to piece together a drive when you need it, turnovers, missed throws, the offense stalling out. And like you said, hey, we took away Debo. We took away George Kittle. It's up to Garoppolo to kind of figure out how to get the ball down the field, and he hasn't been able to do it. I'll just say this, too. I mean, at 650, that seems a little short for me right now, Tyson. I don't know about you. I mean, it seems like these injuries are coming. Maybe a couple more losses to Niners, if you can even see that on the schedule with his defense. But I don't know. That seems short to me.
It was a couple weeks ago would have been the ideal time to get in on San Francisco, because even when they got Christian, they got the bump, and then people got to see them, and then it was like, oh, they're good. And then people kept watching, and they're like, oh, they're really good. But to me, and this is no disrespect to Christian McCaffrey at all, he's not the needle mover in a Super Bowl winning way that I think got kind of perpetuated out there by everybody that was like, holy shit, man, he's got Christian McCaffrey. And it was like, yes, he's awesome. And he puts them at a higher frequency on offense. But I don't think that you're going into a game like, holy shit, we got to play that. Like, how are we going to deal with this 49ers offense in a way that you weren't already? Maybe with like when it was Jeff Wilson running the ball, that's a little different. I'm kind of thinking about this as if Elijah Mitchell was playing because I'm a really big Eli Mitchell guy, and Christian McCaffrey's obviously better than him. But to me, it was like they already were loaded. It's just you weren't paying attention, and now they got a guy that's way more famous that you've been drafting number one in fantasy football for 5 years. And it's like, oh, imagine what this offense is going to do. It's like the offense has been crazy.
Right. The offense was great with Jeff Wilson, who they just traded away. Last team we're going to touch on here in the top 5 here, Cowboys plus 900. And, I mean, if the Niners have the best defense in the NFL, Cowboys can't be far behind. They're legit. I mean, I thought we would see some regression, quite honestly, from all the turnovers they committed last year. They, not committed, but they took away last year. Honestly, they might be better. And they don't have the flashy numbers, but they get after the passer. Micah Parsons is legit. This linebacking core seems like Van Der Esch has settled into this thing, and Dan Quinn's just a badass defensive coordinator, man. Like, that dude is fucking awesome as a defensive coordinator. Cowboys plus 900. Dak Prescott's back. Cooper Rush kept them afloat. I mean, what's your general thoughts on where we're at with the Cowboys?
I mean, it sucks to watch as Eagles fans, but it's just like every week. It's like, oh, somebody new. Cool. Somebody else is going. It's a bunch of guys that before the season, I mean, a lot of people would have told you probably Tony Pollard was going to play well, but they wouldn't have told you that Cooper Rush was going to step up and this team was going to end up winning games, or that Dalton Schultz could be out and everybody's going to know Ferguson and Hendershot by the end of week 4. There's just a lot of guys stepping into roles, and that's one of the reasons that I think they could win is that everybody is doing their job, and that's kind of a first for me watching the Dallas Cowboys. It's like they don't really have a weak link, and that's something that's been. I guess a lot of people want to say wideout too, and we'll see how that's addressed, whether Odell could make the flight or not. But the rest of it has been pretty good, honestly. And the defense is insane. They get after the passer, they fly around. The offense does enough to win football games. The reason why I think they can't, and this is kind of a cop-out, but it's the motto of our show for the most part, the biggest game they've won in – 5 years? Like the Vikings game when they beat them 40-3 earlier this year. It's like,
yeah,
I'm getting sick of hearing this story. Like, oh, this is the cycle. They're ready. They're here. They're going to win the Super Bowl. And unless they get out of round 1 of the playoffs, then it's the same shit. And that's not necessarily fair to this iteration of the Dallas Cowboys. But to me, if I'm looking at this at plus 900 and like the Miami sitting there at plus 1,500 or the Bengals who just went to the Super Bowl at plus 17, Dallas has been really good. It's just hard to talk yourself into that at that price. Not saying they don't deserve to be in the top 5 because honestly, I think they should be a lot closer than the 49ers, and the 49ers are to the Chiefs. But that's just a me thing, I think.
Why can they win the Super Bowl? The defense, game-wrecking defense, man. I mean, they can wreck a game at any point in time. They can take the game over, make your quarterback uncomfortable, sack them, rush them, and then they do have playmakers in the backside that can take the ball away and give it to that offense. That, let's face it, with Tony Pollard at running back, is much more explosive. There's an actual threat on the ground, and Dak Prescott works much better out of play action than he does on just straight dropbacks. CeeDee Lamb's had a great year. I think Michael Gallup, people talk about weak wide receiver too. He's just not getting the targets because Dak likes throwing the tight ends and CeeDee. Like that's it. I think he's a good receiver when he gets opportunities here. The reason why they can't win is basically what you said. I was framing it a different way. Loser franchises stay loser franchises in the biggest moments. We've seen it with the Chargers. They constantly shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, the Colts, since Peyton Manning, like even with Andrew Luck, they've shot themselves in the foot. And it's the Cowboys. They never win big games. They seem to always find a way to lose. And until they go out and prove it to us, like you said, the motto of our show, you got to show us. That's why they can't win the Super Bowl, because they don't have that mentality to do it. And like you said, it may be unfair, but it's still the same Cowboys franchise that's been coming up short for a long time. Browns, we make fun of all the time. The Commanders, we make fun of all the time. These bad franchises, we're like, well, they just suck. The Jags, right? Like, oh, they suck. Like, they'll always be bad. And for some reason, the Cowboys get the pass because before people were born, they were a dynasty. It's just like, are we not paying attention to what's been going on the last 20 years? It's crazy. Now, as far as the long shots go, Tyson, no, I have one I want to play in a long shot. It's not going to shock you at all. It probably won't shock our listeners at all. But I'll let you lead off here. Are you playing your Bengals? I'm curious. We didn't talk about this before. Some of the longer shot odds on the board here that you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm absolutely interested in the Bengals at plus 1,700. I know if you're just kind of casually watching, they don't really feel like they should be this high. Maybe you're probably thinking like, oh, I don't know. I mean, they put up stinker against the Browns. They haven't really been great. They have the second best offense in the NFL by just about every metric behind the Kansas City Chiefs right now, and they've been missing Jamar Chase for 4 weeks now. And if you haven't heard of him, he's just a top 5 guy in the league. He's basically somebody that can take the ball 75 yards, which again expands the ceiling. And to me, that's how you get out of the AFC, and that's how they did it a year ago. You want to be gritty, you want to come back and play these tight games and all that stuff they did, but they were able to come back because they can score quickly in succession. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, we had 3 drives that took 4 minutes, and we got 21 points. Like, we're right back in this game. And I think that you're going to go somewhere else, and I have the same feelings about that team that you're going to say. But to me, like, the Bengals defense is good, and the offense is elite. And anytime you have an elite unit, you have a shot to win the Super Bowl.
This isn't going to shock you. I'm looking at the Bucs here at 20 plus 2,200. And I know they've had a bad season, and there's been questionable things going on within that franchise. We've been talking for a while. It doesn't look like you guys are having fun. They're going to win this division. They're going to get into the playoffs. They're going to host the first-round game, probably against the Cowboys. And this team's going to get healthy at the right time, and it's Tom Brady in the playoffs at plus 2,200. All this team has to do is win 4 games. It's Tom Brady. And you're telling me he can't do it. He's been doing it before. This team's done it before. Like, that seems a little long for a team that's going to win their division and be hosting a playoff game.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. I mean, so if they win the division, they're probably, at the moment, they'd be looking at the Giants. I think that line would be probably Bucs favored to start the playoffs. And then after that, I guess it would depend on the rest of the weekend. But there's a handful of teams that people would take them over. And just one more to slip in so we don't get killed would be the Miami Dolphins at plus 1,500. 2 is 8-0. It's 2-0 over here. You already know that. It's a really, really fun team. They're insane. They are a track team. They're super fun to watch. But do not let them play. If they get to the Super Bowl and they got to deal with Philly, or they got to deal with Dallas, or they got to deal with San Francisco, there is going to be a new Super Bowl record set for yards rushing for whoever they would play from the NFC, because that's the downside with this team. And again, you don't really have to deal with it in the AFC if you're not playing the Titans. Maybe the Ravens, but it's a different style. You can straight up bully these guys up the middle, and there's not a lot of teams equipped to do that over in the AFC. So they've been able to kind of hide that a bit.
Yeah, that's a good look right there. The Dolphins are red hot. I think, honestly, let me see where we're at right here division-wise. Plus 240 to win the AFC East right now. If you're on Bucs, like we were to start, it's not a bad hedge opportunity there. I don't think the Jets can win. They're plus 1,400. Although with Mike White, it looked pretty good.
Legend.
Defense is legit, man.
Legend.
Dolphins are good luck for sure. Super Bowl, I think they're good enough, definitely talented enough. That offense is legit. But that's going to do it for our show today, Tyson. We're finally back from vacation. I'm pretty much just on vacation forever, it seems like.
That's the way to do it, though, right? I mean, time doesn't exist anymore. The world's ending. So you might as well just kind of go around and soak it in.
I got my sticks down here, too, so we're going to play some golf. Why not? You can't do that in New York in the winter.
That's not fair. I mean, it's snowing where I live, so I don't think that wasn't very nice of you to say.
Yeah, right. I had to rub it in. Well, as always, guys, we appreciate you watching and listening to the show. Like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on our social medias. Instagram is @_the_roundtable_pod_. Our TikTok is the same. And if you want to follow us on the old Twitter machine, @TRT_pod to follow us there. We'll be back. We're back in the swing of things. college football episode coming out Wednesday. We're recording Tuesday night. If you want to watch us live on Twitch, we're going to be talking conference championship preview. We got some bowl games that have been announced, and obviously Tyson and I have to do some victory laps and make fun of ourselves for our best and worst picks that we had to start the season. But until next time, guys, peace.